Hello and welcome to my channel. I am Zodiac Bandit, and today I'm going to be recapping and giving my thoughts on episode 13 of campaign 3 of Critical Role. Just going to get right into it, but I guess I can give a brief kind of overview of this. I liked this episode. It was fun and quick. It felt quick. Went by real quick. And, that's always good. Like to see that. Very RP heavy, very fun. So anyway, we're going to get into the recap now. We start with the group split into the two groups they made from last week in their respective buggies, making their way to the ball. Dorian, Fern, and Orem and Imogen try planning a bit more before they get there. They try to figure out who would be the best at taking the ring off Armand's finger and who would be the best to distract him. Imogen thinks about trying to use her telekinesis powers, and they kind of test it out, but it's a little too obvious, so they decide to shelve it for now. In the end, they think of a few ideas to get the ring off. Almost all are over-the-top ideas that involve one of them taking the ring off his finger somehow and then replacing it with the other. In the other buggy, with Esteros, FCG, Ashton, Chetney, and Laudna, Esteros kind of thinks that the group has come together nicely and they seem to be working together as a team. Laudna, FCG, and Ashton hope the group comes up with a very simple idea to get the ring off. Laudna, pushing it even further, hopes it's one that they get him to take the ring off himself to show, and then they swap it somehow there. Sort of metagaming pigeoning, but, still fine. The group also talks about getting some more intel on members of the Quorum. They can't take any weapons in with them, but hopefully they won't need them, and are told by Esteros to only bring something they think they can hide 100%. Eventually, the buggy stops and they are let out to go inside the ball by a servant. Both groups get in without any issues. When Esteros is announced, many heads turn in his direction. The party look in the room and see a few familiar faces. Lena Lumos, or Lana Lumos, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I keep hearing something different every time. Oshad Brescio, and Ashton sees Jenna Huxham, who is surprised to see them as well. FCG casts Detect Magic and sees that the room is basically filled with shit. A bunch of protection, jewelry, and clothing to go around the whole building. Seems some people are a little nervous. They look around for Armand, but they can't find him. The announcer calls to the whole ball that General Ratanish of the Paragon's Call has arrived with his group of cronies. He is a half giant that towers over the rest of the ball attendants. The party start moving about, getting the lay of the land. Another person gets introduced to the ball. It's Armand Treshy. No wonder they didn't see him before, because he wasn't even there. Not just because they're bad rolls. Armand is with a half-elven woman that immediately splits off from him and tries to find a spot alone near the bar. Chetney starts looking to see if anyone is watching Esteros. A older goblin man goes straight to Esteros and says that he is pleased to see someone who is also uncomfortable in this circumstance, and his name is Grease. He says he was invited by a friend, Ajit Dial, who I believe is the person, or the name Dial anyway, was said to Chetney by Gurge, like find the dial. Find somebody Dial, but I don't believe it was Ajit Dial. I believe it was somebody else. The party saw Armand's +1 go off to the side and began scanning the room herself. While moving about, a taller man goes up to Dorian, who says he's never seen him here before and is very intrigued by him. His name is Lord Preston, and he is a self-made man who started his riches in Vasselheim. If you watch the rest of the rest of the players during this conversation, you'll see Travis says, or that he thinks, it's the guy Grog let pull a card from the deck of many things where he pulled the wishing card and, self-made my ass. He definitely had a few wishes up his sleeve, which Fern points out. He tells them that Armand is sort of a black sheep of his family, and that's why he works so hard to kind of prove his worth to them. Imogen asks him if there's anyone important to talk to, and he points her to Gavis Oranda, the voice of the Quorum. Orem sees Dorian's brother and warns Dorian about this. Fern wants to get Armand's attention, and says that they should do a dance, and that'll get his attention. And Imogen backs this idea up and says they're both good-looking people; it'll surely get his attention. Before they can do much, Teen Glasses gets everyone's attention, and Gavis stands above everyone else on a chair and thanks everyone for coming to celebrate the city and everything that they're doing with it. But some people point out that the city isn't necessarily the safest place anymore, with a massive explosion happening a few days ago, and what they're going to do about all of these rumors and dangers happening, which Gavis says, "You can come speak to me privately about it." Britannish then steps forward, closer to Gavis, seemingly, to me anyway, showing that the Paragon's Call is now allowed to move about the city. And that is sort of their intimidation factor to try to make the city safer. It basically seems to be that was the goal all along. Ashton sees that Armand's date moved from where she was, the bar, to a seat further back. Ashton gets bad vibes from her and warns Estros, and then Estros says that is Lady Emoth. Then goes and joins her at her seat, and she's not very forthcoming about anything toward Ashton. FCG casts Enhance ability on Fern and Dorian to make sure their dancing is good because it's charisma based, and they need advantage for all of this because this is going to be risky. Gavis goes up to Fern and introduces himself to her. Gavis loses his mind their mind over FCG, asking who owns FCG, and says he'll pay good money to figure out who it is because he doesn't like secrets, but he actually does like secrets. Gavish tells them not to really talk politics and keep things light and fun, and then asks if they know anything about the dance of the Crossroads, and Fern says her favorite part is the spinning and jumping, which he says, regional variants, but eventually they end up doing a lot of spinning and jumping. We learn that this is a dance that kind of forces people into talking with others that they may not be able to or normally wouldn't talk to, kind of a speed dating thing, but for politics and business. At this point, everyone that was watching Emoth kind of loses sight of her. They see Cyrus, Dorian's brother, trying to sneak around, but he's very bad at it. Rolled a nice natural 1. Orem meets up with Chetney and Esteros and tells them things are not going the way he wants them to. And as he walks away from them, the music begins to kick up, and the dance of the Crossroads is about to start. Laudna goes for Britannish. No one else seems to go for him, so she gets her first sort of dibs at him. Chetney goes to Cyrus and tells him he's not good at hiding from people, and he shouldn't even be here in the first place. He should be trying to stay out of trouble. Cyrus asks Chetney not to tell Dorian about him being there, but it's a little too late. Fern goes straight for the dance floor. Ashton looks for Jenna Huxon, but can't find her. They try to find Armand, but they can't, so they start dancing together, Fern and Dorian, that is. And they start to dance to make a plan. The game plan is whoever dances with Armand first takes the ring, and whoever dances with him second gives him the fake one. Dorian plans to send Fern to Armand first. They go for it, but Fern is caught by Lord Preston, the creepy bastard, who gives off very weird vibes to her. Dorian dances with a Master Keef of Port Namali. Nice callback to Campaign 2 for Port Namali. We're starting to get some Campaign 2 callbacks. We cut back to Chetney, who is talking to Cyrus, and who is supposed to be meeting with Lady Emoth, because he's helping her to help him pay off debts. She comes up and takes Cyrus's hand and tells him it's time, and the two begin making their way through the crowd, Chetney keeping an eye on them. Imogen tries to take the ring off of Armand's hand with her telekinesis, but like earlier, it failed. Fern asks Lord Preston for the biggest spin of his life and makes her way to Armand Tressie, who takes her hand as someone else falls in front of him, who is trying to take their hand, and kind of looks at her like, what the hell are you doing? The two of them begin to dance, and she tells him that she is from the Feywilds, and Imogen reads his mind, and this sort of bothers him. He's not a big fan of the Nightmare King, and two Fey creatures being so close together in time is a little odd and strange. Maybe they're connected. The music signals for a change in partner, and as this happens, Fern tries to take the ring as she exits. She gets it off, but he kind of notices that it came off. He doesn't blame her and sort of thinks she's just clumsy about it. And it's in her hand. Fern drops it, and she ignores it and walks away. Dorian goes to pull the other ring out of his pocket and tries to kick the other one away while it's on the ground without Armand noticing. This fails, and Dorian kicks it away, and Armand is fixated on it, and then begins to ignore Dorian. FCG sees the ring getting kicked around the dance floor and goes for it, a straight beeline. And with Orem's help, he's able to pick the ring up before someone else does. Dorian tosses the fake ring to Fern, who then stops her dance with the next person she started it with, and says that he just proposed to her, and walks off. The guy says congratulations and is left standing there by himself. That is... brings up some sad memories. Anyway, she starts walking off toward Imogen and scaring people off who try to come up to her and dance with her. Chetney sees Cyrus and Emoth, God, the name's messing me up, leaving the dance floor. Laudna, dancing with Ratanish, learns that he follows the Raven Queen, or the Dust Queen there, and he sees she's not exactly one to sort of agree with the Raven Queen, and the two kind of part ways from each other after learning a bit of their boundaries. And they both sort of lead the Crossroad dance after this. FCG and Fern make their way to Imogen, and Imogen is on the ground looking for the ring, or pretending to, as Armand comes over to her to see if she has found it, and she says she hasn't, which kind of makes him mad. And then Orem shows up and says, "It was over there," and points to the right, and which is the opposite direction of where it went, and Armand doesn't quite believe him, so he goes to the left. Eventually, Fern gets to Imogen, who then takes the ring and says that she found it, and gives the fake ring to Armand. Mission successful. Thank God. They were rolling like shit, and they still pulled it off in the most D&D chaotic way possible, and I love it. We then go to Chetney, who sees Emoth sneak behind some doors, and he makes his way there as well. He tries to walk in without raising any suspicions, but a guard stops him and asks him what he's doing. Chetney says he has to piss, and the guy lets him through and says it's on the left, be quick. Chetney goes through and hears a door close to the right. He is now in a hallway with doors going both left and right in a sort of T formation that sort of starts to circle off. He hides from some guards who are coming from the right towards him and turns invisible, trying to make his way past them, but he bumps into a table in the worst goddamn way possible. And he hits it with his hip. That is the worst. Anyone ever do that? You just walk into something and it's perfectly your hip bone? That is the worst feeling in the world. And it gets their attention. He evades them with the help of a stranger looking for the washrooms. He then follows his nose to Lady Emoth's room, where he hears some heavy objects being moved around. He checks the door and it's unlocked. It's dark and he sees that there is a shape appear from a different room, and they charge the door and closes it. He makes his way back to the dance room to see that Cyrus is gone, and he thinks back to the voice that he heard helping him in the other room, and realizes that it was Cyrus who tried to sneak his way in as well. So he goes back through to try to find him. He makes his way much easier this time back to the doors where Emoth is, picks the lock, which is super easy because it was just previously picked by someone else, and we see 3 Shea Creeper-like shapes going through drawers of the room, the cabinets, the dressers, and everything, and moving stuff into the back room again. A figure moves from the doorway and sees that the door is open again and moves toward it again. Emoth's face is somewhat gray, her eyes are blackened, and her limbs are longer and thinner. Then she closes it, but Chetney noticed that she is heavily sweating, sort of drawing a connection to the Nightmare King, the Shea Creepers, and now this Lady Emoth person. Chetney goes back to the main room where we cut to Laudna, who sees Valis from the moon tower. And Valis sort of doesn't acknowledge Laudna, but he sees Ashton, who is wearing a Nightmare King-inspired outfit. He sends Ratanish over to confront Ashton. Ratanish rips off the mask to kind of reveal Ashton's face. Ashton immediately slaps Ratanish, who slaps him right back, and asks if they can take this outside. He begins to push Ashton outside, but Ashton pushes his hand off and begins walking outside himself. Everyone begins to follow, or basically everyone begins to follow. And that is where the episode ends, with Ashton and Ratanish standing off, ready to square up in hand-to-hand combat. I love this episode. So much fun. Lots of lore, like people lore, history lore of, certain people in this city and their positions. We got to learn a bit more about Armand, the Paragon's Call, a connection with the Shea Creepers, in my opinion, a connection with the Shea Creepers, Lady Emond, and now the Nightmare King. And we get the general vibe that some of the people working with the Nightmare King aren't a big fan of him. They're kind of creeped out by the idea of these Fae people being here. And it's good. Nice and fun. And we also saw that, Lord Esteros is actually kind of rare to be appearing in places like this, which is nice. It's nice to see that it's not just him saying he doesn't go out. He just doesn't. Sometimes people say that and then they're all friendly with people. Sort of like in Campaign 2 when the Ruby of the Sea was like, oh, I don't go out much. And then when she went to that other party elsewhere, she seemed to mingle just fine. But then it was when it was walking back was the problem. But with this character, I kind of lost track. Right, Esteros. With Esteros, he truly just doesn't go anywhere. So it's very rare and it kind of pulled everyone's attention. Just something I kind of thought about. And Ashton throughout this, making sure, like, some people noticed him, but he made sure he didn't go by his real name Ashton. Sorry, their real name Ashton. They went by Aaron. Just because Ashton has a bit of a history with him, with a bunch of these people in this city. So, best to keep their name. Christ, I gotta get better at that. Their name out of everyone's mouth. Imogen was having a rough time. She wasn't a big fan of the idea of being, like, Dorian's, like, servant. Orm didn't mind, but Imogen seemed to have an issue. I liked the groups they split up into as well. There was EXU plus Imogen, and then a bunch of creepy people with Esteros, and I thought that was really funny to me. But, yeah, fun episode. Tons of RP, tons of good stuff. How does Chetney continue to find himself being alone in situations that could kill him? Does Travis not realize that he's already lost one character this campaign? Granted, I love it. I love seeing Travis push the big red button, and he says fuck it a lot and just does it. Also, another person who decided to say fuck it earlier in this episode was Dorian. Like, Imogen was saying, like, no, you gotta do this with the ring, do that with the ring. And, Robbie had his own idea of what he wanted to do with the ring, so he cut off the communication with her and just went for it. And I love that. I hate it when too many people try to interject with what you're trying to do. And I felt like he did that right, personally. I really enjoy seeing players not fall to the metagaming. And they did that a lot throughout this episode. There was attempts at metagaming, and it was very, like, small stuff, but, like, like right at the beginning where Laudna's like, oh, what about the simplest plans, blah, 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 right after they were planning, like, really hard plans. And they didn't follow what Laudna said, as if they didn't hear it, because they didn't. And I really like that. And it shows that this group is very good at not metagaming. So, yeah, I gotta appreciate that. I gotta appreciate things when I appreciate them. So, yeah. Alrighty, that's this episode. Really liked it. Episode 13 in the books. Now I'm gonna go watch Legend of Vox Machina, because I'm excited to see what's next. So I'll be making that video for Sunday? Yeah, that's what I've done. Sunday video. Perfect. I'll see you guys Sunday. Peace.